Porter had never seen a building made entirely of blades before. The walls of the Great Hall were covered with thousands of weapons, each one placed there by a warrior after their final victory. The metal caught the pale blue light from above and sent it scattering across the floor like broken glass. He stood very still and tried not to stare, but it was difficult. They had built their entire civilization around the art of killing, and this room was their most sacred place. Commander Lisa Holt walked beside him with her hands clasped behind her back. She was a tall woman with gray hair cut short and eyes that never seemed to rest. She had spent 20 years negotiating with alien species and had learned more from watching her in 6 months than he had from any training program. She leaned toward him slightly without breaking her stride. "Remember," she said quietly, "we are guests here. Whatever happens, we do not react. We do not show emotion. These people read body language better than we read words." Nodded, he understood. They were not like the other species humanity had encountered. They did not value trade or knowledge or peace. They valued strength. Every interaction was a test, and every test had consequences. The hall was filled with officials and warriors. They stood in groups along the walls, their tall bodies wrapped in ceremonial armor that left their arms bare. Their skin was pale gray, almost silver in the light, and their faces were sharp and angular with eyes that reflected like mirrors. They watched the humans with open curiosity and could feel their judgment pressing against him like a physical weight. Ambassador waited for them at the center of the room. He was smaller than most, with a softer voice and a habit of tilting his head when he listened. He belonged to the reformist faction, the group that believed they needed to change if they wanted to survive in a galaxy full of new species. He had invited humanity to negotiate a trade agreement, and he had staked his entire political career on the outcome. "Commander Holt," said, bowing his head slightly, "Porter, I welcome you to the Hall of Blades. May your words cut true and your intentions remain sharp." Lisa returned the bow. "Ambassador, we are honored to stand in this sacred place. Humanity comes with open hands and honest purpose." Noticed movement near the far wall. A group of warriors had separated from the others and were walking toward the center of the room. They moved with the confidence of predators, and at their head was a female warrior who stood taller than the rest. Her armor was darker than the others, and the blades mounted on her shoulders were longer and more curved. She stopped a few meters from the humans and looked at them the way a hunter might look at wounded prey. "This is High Blade," said, and there was tension in his voice that did not miss. "She leads the traditionalist faction. She has requested permission to observe the negotiations." "Observe," repeated, and her voice was like metal scraping stone. "Yes, I will observe these soft creatures and see what they are worth." Lisa did not react. Her expression remained calm, her posture unchanged. Followed her example, but he could feel his heart beating faster. He had read the reports about. She had killed more opponents in ritual combat than any living. She believed that humanity was a disease that needed to be cut away before it spread. "We are pleased to have you join us," Lisa said smoothly. "Humanity values the opportunity to learn from traditions." Laughed, it was not a pleasant sound. "Learn? What could your kind possibly learn? You have no blades, you have no warriors, your bodies are soft and your blood is thin. You are not partners. You are prey that has wandered into the wrong territory." The hall fell silent. Every was watching now, waiting to see how the humans would respond. Kept his eyes forward and his hands relaxed at his sides. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he did not move. This was the test. This was what Lisa had warned him about. "We did not come here to prove our strength," Lisa said calmly. "We came to discuss trade. If they are interested in partnership, we are ready to negotiate. If not, we will leave in peace." "Peace," said, and she stepped closer. She was close enough now that could see the small scars that covered her arms, each one a mark from a different battle. "Your kind speaks of peace because you cannot speak of victory. You hide behind words because you have nothing else. But words do not matter in this hall. Only strength matters here." She turned to address the crowd, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "I have watched these humans since they arrived. They move carefully. They speak softly. They avoid conflict at every turn. This is not diplomacy. This is weakness, and weakness has no place among them." Stepped forward. "High Blade, the humans are our guests. They have come in good faith to discuss matters of mutual benefit. This is not the time for challenges." "There is always time for truth," replied. She looked back at Lisa with contempt burning in her mirror eyes. "I propose a simple test. Let these humans prove they are worthy of standing in this hall. Let them face a challenge and show us what they are made of. If they refuse, we will know they are exactly what I say they are. Pray, nothing more." The crowd began to murmur. Could see the reformists looking worried and the traditionalists looking hungry. Whatever happened next would determine the future of human relations. Smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had already won. "Tomorrow, I will invoke the right of dominance. I will challenge the humans in the old way with blades and blood, and when I stand over their broken bodies, everyone will see the truth. Humanity is weak, and the weak do not deserve our respect." She turned and walked away without waiting for a response. Her followers went with her, and the hall erupted into noise as every began talking at once. Looked at Lisa with something close to despair in his eyes. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I did not expect this. The right of dominance cannot be refused. If you do not accept, humanity will be declared unworthy. You will never be welcome among our people again." Lisa stood very still for a long moment. Then she looked at, and he saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Fear. The morning came too quickly. Had not slept. He had spent the night in his small room on the human ship, sitting by the window and watching the alien stars move slowly across the sky. His mind kept returning to the same question, the one he could not answer. What was he going to do? Commander Holt had argued with Ambassador for hours after his announcement. She had tried every diplomatic trick she knew, every legal argument, every appeal to reason, but had been clear. The right of dominance was sacred law. It could not be avoided or delayed. Someone had to face in combat, or humanity would be marked as cowards forever. Lisa had volunteered herself. She was the senior officer. It was her responsibility, but had watched her hands shake when she thought no one was looking, and he had seen the medical reports in her file. She was 53 years old and had a heart condition that she kept hidden from command. She would not survive 5 seconds against a blade. Found her in the ship's small meeting room, staring at a screen that showed information about combat techniques. Her face was pale and tired, and she looked older than he had ever seen her. "I will do it," said from the doorway. Lisa looked up at him. "Absolutely not. You are a cultural, you have no combat training. You would be throwing your life away." "And you would not." She did not answer, walked into the room and sat down across from her. He kept his voice calm and steady, the way she had taught him. "I know about your heart," he said. "I know you cannot fight, and I know that if you go into that arena tomorrow you will die, so let me go instead. You do not understand what you are asking. Is the deadliest warrior on this planet. She has killed hundreds of opponents. She will cut you apart before you can even raise your hands." "Maybe," he said, "but I have something she does not expect." Lisa frowned. "What?" Smiled slightly. "Ignorance. She thinks humans are weak. She thinks we have no fight in us. She is going to underestimate me, and that might be the only advantage I need." Lisa shook her head. "This is madness. I cannot allow you to sacrifice yourself for a trade agreement." "It is not about the trade agreement," said quietly. "It is about what happens next. If we back down now, every species in this sector will see us as prey. They are not the only predators out here. If we want humanity to survive in this galaxy, someone has to show them that we are not afraid. Someone has to prove that humans do not break." Lisa was silent for a long moment. Could see her fighting with herself, weighing his life against the future of their entire species. Finally, she let out a long breath and closed her eyes. "There has to be another way," she said. "There is not, you know there is not." She opened her eyes and looked at him with a mix of sadness and respect. "You are braver than I gave you credit for, Porter." "I am terrified," he admitted, "but fear is not the same as weakness. You taught me that." The next hour passed in a blur, reviewed everything they had on combat techniques. He studied recordings of previous fights, watching the way she moved, the angles she preferred, the rhythm of her attacks. She was fast and precise, but she was also predictable. She always went for the killing strike early. She never played with her opponents. She saw combat as a simple equation. Strike fast, strike hard, end it quickly. Had an idea forming in his mind. It was dangerous and probably stupid, but it was the only thing he could think of that might work. When the time came, Ambassador arrived at the ship to escort them to the Hall of Blades. His expression was grave, but there was something like hope in his eyes when he looked at. "You are truly going to do this," said. "Yes. They will remember this day. Whatever happens, they will remember." The hall was packed with thousands of when they arrived. The crowd stretched from wall to wall, filling every space, every balcony, every corner. The combat circle at the center of the room had been cleared, and ceremonial blades had been placed on a stand beside it. The blades were beautiful and terrible, curved like crescent moons and sharp enough to cut through bone. Was already waiting inside the circle. She wore no armor today, only simple fighting clothes that left her arms and legs free to move. She looked at as he approached and smiled with cruel amusement. "So the soft one has come to die," she said. "I expected the old woman, but you will serve just as well." Stepped into the circle and looked at the blades on the stand. Then he turned his back on them and faced with empty hands. The crowd gasped, even looked confused. "What is this?" she demanded. "Pick up your blade." "No," said. His voice was calm, but his heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "I do not need a blade." Stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed and the sound echoed through the hall. "You insult me. You think you can face a high blade with nothing but your bare hands. This is not bravery. This is stupidity." "Maybe," said, "but I am not here to kill you. I am here to show you something. The only thing you will show me is how quickly human blood spills." She picked up one of the ceremonial blades and tested its weight. The metal sang as it cut through the air. Watched her movements carefully, tracking the position of her feet, the angle of her shoulders, the tension in her arms. "Begin," the ceremony master called out. Started circling. Her movements were fluid and controlled like water flowing around a stone. She feinted twice, testing his reactions, watching to see if he would flinch, stood perfectly still. He did not raise his hands. He did not shift his weight. He simply watched her and waited. "You do not even know how to fight," said, and there was disgust in her voice. "This is beneath me. I will end it quickly." She raised the blade and lunged forward. Had seen this strike before. He had watched her use it 100 times in the recordings. It was her favorite killing move, a diagonal slash aimed at the throat that was almost impossible to block with a weapon. But was not trying to block it. He stepped forward into the attack and brought his hands together around the blade. The blade bit into his palms. He felt the edge slice through skin and muscle, felt the hot rush of blood running down his wrists and dripping onto the floor. The pain was enormous, a white fire that raced up his arms and tried to make him let go. But he did not let go. He squeezed harder. The blade stopped. His eyes went wide. She tried to pull the weapon free but held it firmly between his hands. Blood was pouring from his wounds now, pooling on the stone beneath his feet, but the blade did not move. It could not move. The hall was completely silent. Thousands have stood frozen in place, unable to believe what they were seeing. A human had caught a killing blade with his bare hands. A human was bleeding and refusing to fall. Hal whispered. Her voice had lost all its contempt. Now there was only confusion and the first small seed of fear. "This is not possible. Your bones should have shattered. Your hands should have been cut clean through." Looked at her through the pain. His vision was starting to blur at the edges, but he forced himself to focus. He needed her to understand. He needed all of them to understand. "Humans are not what you think we are," he said. His voice was steady despite the agony burning through his body. "We are not soft. We are not weak. We are survivors. Our ancestors hunted animals 10 times their size. They walked across frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They kept going when everything in their bodies told them to stop." He twisted his hand slightly, and the blade shifted in its grip. She tried to resist, but had leverage now, and he used it. The weapon turned in her fingers, and suddenly she was the one struggling to hold on. "We have dense bones," continued, "fast muscles, nervous systems that can ignore pain when we need them to, and we have something else, something your people have never understood." He pulled the blade toward him, using his own wounded hands as a trap, was forced to step forward or lose her weapon. Her eyes were locked on his face, searching for some sign of weakness, some indication that he was about to collapse. She found nothing. "We do not give up," said, "ever. You can cut us and burn us and break us apart, and we will still keep coming, not because we are too stupid to know when we are beaten, but because we decided a long time ago that giving up is not an option. Survival is not just something we do, it is who we are." He twisted again, harder this time, and the blade finally came free from his hands. She stumbled backward, suddenly unarmed, and stared at with something that might have been horror. Held up the blade. Blood dripped from the edge and from his ruined palms. He could feel his strength fatting, feel the darkness creeping in at the edges of his consciousness, but he was not done yet. "I could kill you now," he said quietly. "By your own laws I have won. The blade is mine and your life is forfeit." The crowd stirred. They knew their traditions. They knew what was supposed to happen next. The victor always killed the loser. It was the way things had been done for 1,000 years. Straightened her spine and lifted her chin. She was preparing for death. Could see it in the way she held herself, the way she accepted what was coming. She was not afraid. She was a warrior, and warriors died with honor. Lowered the blade. "But I am not going to kill you," he said. The crowd erupted into chaos. Shouted and argued, their voices crashing against each other like waves against stone. Some were outraged. Some were confused. Some were staring at like he had grown a second head. Did not move. She stood there looking at with an expression he could not read. "Why?" she asked. "You have the right, you have the power, why would you spare me?" Dropped the blade on the ground. The sound of it hitting stone echoed through the hall like a bell. "Because killing you proves nothing," he said. "You wanted to show everyone that humans are weak, that we cannot fight, that we do not deserve respect. But I did not come here to prove I can kill. I came here to prove that I can choose not to." He held up his bleeding hands, showing her the wounds, showing everyone the price he had paid. "This is what humans are. We bleed, we break, we fall down, and then we get back up, not because we want to hurt others, but because we refuse to let others define what we are." Was silent. Her mirror eyes reflected his bloody figure, and for the first time since he had met her, she looked uncertain. "You could have died," she said. "You should have died. No living thing catches a blade like that and survives." "Humans are not like other living things," said. "We are stubborn, ridiculously, impossibly stubborn, and sometimes that stubbornness looks like stupidity, but sometimes it looks like courage." He swayed on his feet. The blood loss was catching up with him now. The hall was starting to spin, and his legs felt like they were made of water. Commander Holt was suddenly beside him, her arm around his waist, holding him upright. She was shouting for a medic, her voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. "Looked at one last time. We are not prey," he said, "and we are not predators. We are something else, something your people have never seen before. You can fear us or respect us or ignore us, but you cannot deny what we are." Then his legs gave out, and everything went dark. He woke up on the human ship with his hands wrapped in thick white bandages and Lisa Holt sitting beside his bed. She looked exhausted and relieved and angry all at once. "That was the thing I have ever seen," she said. Tried to smile, but his face did not want to cooperate. "Did it work?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "It worked. They are still arguing about what it means, but they are not calling us weak anymore. Ambassador says the reformists are using your display as evidence that humans deserve respect." "And?" Lisa's expression became complicated. "She is waiting outside. She wants to speak with you." Closed his eyes. His hands were throbbing with pain, but underneath the pain was something else, something that felt like hope. "Send her in," he said. Entered the medical bay slowly, as if she was walking into enemy territory. Her armor was gone, replaced by simple gray robes that made her look smaller somehow, less threatening. She stopped a few steps from his bed and stood there with her hands clasped in front of her. "I do not know why I came," she said. Her voice was quiet, nothing like the sharp weapon it had been in the Hall of Blades. "I have killed many opponents, hundreds. I never visited any of them after. I never thought about them at all." Watched her carefully. Even wounded and exhausted, he could see that something had changed in her. The certainty that had defined her was cracked now, and something new was seeping through. "But I cannot stop thinking about you," continued. "About what you did, about what you said. It keeps turning in my mind like a blade that will not stop spinning." "What part?" he asked. His jaw tightened. "All of it. None of it makes sense. You should not have been able to catch my blade. Your hands should have been destroyed, and even if you somehow survived, you should have killed me. That is the law. That is the way things are done. Victory means death for the loser. Human law is different. I'm beginning to understand that." Moved closer and looked down at his bandaged hands. "The healers on this ship told me you may never regain full use of your fingers. They said there is permanent nerve damage. They said you will feel pain in your hands for the rest of your life." Nodded. The doctors had told him the same thing. The blade had cut deep, severing tendons and scraping bone. He would need months of recovery and therapy, and even then there were no guarantees. "Was it worth it?" asked. "You gave up your hands to spare my life, to prove a point. Was it worth the cost?" Thought about the question carefully. He thought about his hands, about all the things he might never do again. He thought about the pain that would follow him forever. And then he thought about the look on his face when he had dropped the blade. The confusion, the wonder, the first crack in a wall that had stood for centuries. "Yes," he said, "it was worth it." Stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something never expected. She knelt beside his bed and bowed her head. "I do not understand your people," she said. "I thought I did. I thought you were weak because you avoided conflict. I thought you were cowards because you chose words over blades, but I was wrong." She looked up at him, and her mirror eyes were filled with something that might have been respect. "You are not weak. You are terrifying. Not because of what you can do, but because of what you are willing to sacrifice, what you are willing to endure. I have never seen anything like it." Shook his head slowly. "We are not trying to be terrifying, we are just trying to survive." "That is what makes it worse," said. "You do not even realize how frightening you are. You do not see yourselves the way others see you. To you, catching a blade with bare hands is just something humans can do. Refusing to kill an enemy is just a choice. But to us, these things are impossible. They violate everything we thought we knew about the universe." She rose to her feet and took a deep breath. "I came here to kill you, or at least to break you, to prove that humans were nothing but soft creatures who did not deserve to share space with warriors. But you broke me instead, not with violence, not with threats, with something I do not have a word for." "Mercy," said. "The word is mercy." "Mercy?" Repeated the word like she was tasting something strange. "We do not have this concept in our language. The closest word we have means weakness or failure, but what you showed me was not weakness. It was the opposite of weakness." Commander Holt appeared in the doorway. She had been listening, realized. Her expression was unreadable, but there was tension in her shoulders. "High Blade," Lisa said carefully. "The Council has sent a message. They want to continue the negotiations, but they want to speak with first." Turned to face Lisa. "They are afraid of him. The entire Council saw what he did, and now they do not know what to think. He broke their understanding of what humans are." "Is that a problem?" "No," said, and there was a hint of her old smile in the corner of her mouth. "It is an opportunity. The traditionalists have lost their argument. How can they claim humans are weak when a human caught my blade and then refused to kill me? How can they call you prey when your wounded warrior has more strength than our greatest fighters?" Lisa stepped into the room fully. "What are you suggesting?" Turned back to, "I am suggesting that I made a mistake. A fatal mistake, as your title says. But perhaps my mistake can become something useful. Perhaps it can be the beginning of something new." "Something new?" asked. "An alliance. A true partnership between our peoples. Not based on trade or territory, but on understanding. I am the High Blade. My voice carries weight with the traditionalists. If I stand beside humanity, if I say that you deserve respect, they will listen." Studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. He found none. Whatever had happened in the Hall of Blades had genuinely changed her. The warrior who had wanted to prove human weakness had become something else entirely. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help us? A few hours ago you wanted us dead." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was softer than had ever heard it. "Because you showed me something I had never seen before," she said. "In all my years of fighting and all my victories, I never met anyone who could defeat me and then choose not to destroy me. I do not understand it. I do not understand you. And I need to understand. I need to know how a species that bleeds so easily can be so hard to break." She extended her hand toward. It was a human gesture, one she must have learned from their records. "Let me learn," she said. "Let me walk beside your people and see what you see. Let me understand what mercy truly means." Looked at her hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he raised his bandaged arm and let her take it gently in her grip. "Welcome to humanity," he said. The Hall of Blades looked different 3 days later. The thousands of weapons still covered the walls, and the pale blue light still fell from above, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where there had been tension and hostility, there was now something that felt almost like celebration. Stood at the center of the room with Commander Holt on one side and High Blade on the other. His hands were still bandaged, still throbbing with pain, but he stood straight and tall. He had earned this moment with blood and courage, and he was not going to let his wounds make him look weak. Ambassador addressed the crowd in the formal tones of ceremony. We have gathered to witness the signing of the Unity Accord. For the first time in our history, the Dominion will enter into a true partnership with another species, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as equals. The crowd murmured, but there was no opposition. The traditionalists had lost their power the moment had dropped the blade and walked away. Everything they believed about strength and weakness had been shattered by a single act of mercy. This accord includes terms for trade and mutual defense, continued. But it also includes something new, a cultural exchange program. High Blade has volunteered to serve as the first ambassador to humanity. She will live among humans, learn their ways, and teach them ours in return. Stepped forward and addressed the crowd directly. I know many of you are confused. Some of you are angry. You watched me lose a battle I should have won, and now you see me standing beside the enemy as an ally. You wonder if I have lost my mind. She paused and let the silence stretch. Every eye in the hall was fixed on her. I have not lost my mind, she said. I have found something better. I have found perspective. For centuries, we have believed that strength means destroying our enemies, that victory means death, that mercy is just another word for failure. But we were wrong. She turned and looked at. This human caught my blade with his bare hands. He bled on the floor of this sacred hall. He had every right to kill me, and he would have been celebrated for it. But he chose a different path. He chose to show me that real strength is not about destroying what threatens you. It is about building something better. The crowd was completely silent now, could feel the weight of history pressing down on the moment. Whatever happened next would echo through generations. I attacked him to kill, said, and he blocked my blade barehanded. It was a fatal mistake, but the death was not his. It was the death of my old way of thinking, the death of my certainty that violence was the only answer. He killed my beliefs without ever striking a blow. She reached out and took his bandaged hand in hers, holding it gently so she would not cause him more pain. This is what humans call mercy, and I am beginning to understand that it is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. The ceremony continued with the formal signing of the accord. Watched as Commander Holt and Ambassador pressed their hands to the sacred document, sealing the agreement that would bind their peoples together. Then it was his turn. He stepped forward and looked down at the document. The pain in his hands flared as he moved, a constant reminder of what he had sacrificed. But when he pressed his bandaged palms to the surface and left behind an impression stained slightly with his own blood, he felt nothing but pride. After the ceremony, there was a feast, and humans sat together at long tables, sharing food and stories. Watched as soldiers who had glared at him with contempt just days ago now raised their glasses in salute. The change was remarkable, almost unbelievable. Sat beside him, studying everything with keen interest. She had already started asking questions about human customs, about their history, their art, their beliefs. Answered as best he could, but there was so much to explain that he barely knew where to start. Your hands, said eventually, will they truly never heal completely? Looked down at his bandages. The doctors had been clear. The damage was permanent. He would spend the rest of his life with reduced grip strength and chronic pain. Every time he tried to pick something up, every time he reached for a door handle or held a cup, he would be reminded of what had happened in this hall. No, he said, they will not. And you are not angry, not bitter. You gave up so much for a species that wanted to destroy you. Thought about the question for a long time before answering. I am not angry because it was my choice. Nobody forced me to step into that circle. Nobody made me catch your blade. I did it because I believed it was the right thing to do, and I would do it again. Shook her head slowly. I do not think I will ever fully understand humans. That is fine, said. We do not fully understand ourselves most of the time. Commander Holt appeared beside them, her face tired but satisfied. There is something I need to tell you. Anthropology Command has been following our reports closely. They want to offer you a promotion. Blinked. A promotion to what? Cultural liaison to the Dominion, first of your kind. You would work directly with High Blade to manage the exchange program. Looked at who was watching him with an expression he was starting to recognize as curiosity. What do you think? He asked her. I think you are the only human I have ever met who can truly understand what we are, said. And I think you are the only one who can help us understand what you are. I would be honored to work beside you. turned back to Lisa and nodded. "Tell them I accept." That night, after the feast had ended and the hall had emptied, walked out onto a balcony overlooking the capital. The alien stars burned overhead, countless points of light in an endless darkness. He held up his bandaged hands and studied them in the starlight. Appeared beside him, silent as always when she moved. "You are thinking about the pain," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, I am wondering if it will ever stop." "It will not," said. "Some wounds leave scars that last forever, but that does not make them mistakes. Sometimes the most important moments of our lives are the ones that hurt the most." Lowered his hands and looked at her. "How did you know the blade would not cut through completely? When I caught it, there must have been a moment when you thought you had won." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and for the first time it was a genuine smile, free of cruelty or contempt. "I did not know," admitted. "I just knew that I had to try. I knew that if I failed, it would only be my life lost. But if I did not try at all, something much more important would be lost. The chance for our peoples to understand each other. And that was worth dying for." Looked up at the stars, at the vast unknown that stretched out before them. Somewhere out there, humanity was spreading across the galaxy, meeting new species, facing new challenges. They would need allies. They would need friends. And sometimes they would need someone willing to bleed for them. "Some things are worth bleeding for," he said. "Some things are worth the scars." Nodded slowly. Then she reached out and took his bandaged hand in hers, holding it gently against the night. "Then teach me," she said. "Teach me what those things are." And standing there under alien stars, with his wounds still fresh and his future uncertain, began a hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe was big enough for all of them.